electroencephalogram, or it's a recording on a moving piece of paper or on the monitor screen from where you can get a printout of the very minute electrical disturbances of millions of neurons inside our brain, and when they sum up, they will have they will show little disturbances, and these are picked up by scalp electrodes, and then they are amplified and they are shown up in the screen or as squiggles on running strip of papers. So there are a few waveforms in electroencephalogram with which we want to be acquainted. There are a few waveforms of consequence being alpha, beta, gamma, delta and theta. So alpha waves are usually seen when the person is fully relaxed, eyes closed, and there is from around 8 to 12 oscillations per second, and these oscillations are small in amplitude. Beta waves happen when the person is a little more attentive, eyes are open, and thereby increasing the frequency wave from 12 to 20 or 30 hertz. Gamma waves are seen when the person is asked to solve a problem or is deep into some thought or a little agitated. It might even go up to 30, 35 hertz. Delta waves are usually seen when the person is not awake, when the person is asleep. So it's from around half hertz to around 4 hertz. And theta wave is when the person is not asleep but drowsy and very relaxed. So it will be as low as 4 to 8 hertz. We see when the person is awake and contemplating and active, so the wave pattern is with very high frequency and lower amplitude. So this is called a desynchronized pattern. All the neurons, they are acting in unison and they cut each other out, and whatever we get as a sound is small but of higher frequency. But when the person is very relaxed, even as relaxed as in sleep, then we see lower frequency, very low frequency, but the waves have become synchronized. The waves have become bigger, the amplitude is bigger and synchronized. So in stages of non-REM sleep, non-rapid eye movement sleep, which is the first stage of sleep, the first phase of sleep, we see slowing of the frequency and increase of the amplitude. In some waveform, we might even see sleep spindle and K waves during the second, third phase of sleep. Now, why is EEG useful? So EEG can be used in order to diagnose some pathologies. A brain tumor, a space occupying lesion in the brain give rise to a particular kind of EEG pattern. Then there are certain psychiatric disorder which can give rise to a certain pattern of EEG. Then a comatose patient will have a definite type of EEG. Then EEG is also used as a tool for determining the death of a person. So along with other vital signs or the lack of the vital signs, a flat EEG is indicative of the brain death of a person. Now, regarding sleep, before we go into the details and draw a diagram of all the neurotransmitters and the nuclei involved in sleep, and also the thalamus and the cortical awareness, we need to talk a little bit about the first phase of sleep, the non-REM sleep, and then the second phase of REM sleep. These two phases will happen over and over again in one night of sleep. Suppose you have 6 or 7 hours of sleep in 24 hours, that is almost 1/3 of your lifetime. So in this 8 hours of a day's sleep, there will be NREM sleep, REM sleep, then again NREM sleep, REM sleep, NREM sleep, and REM sleep, and the person will usually awake refreshed during an REM sleep. So as the night progresses, the amount of REM sleep increases. Now, what is the difference? Non-REM and REM. REM means rapid eye movement. So in REM sleep, what we see is that the eyeballs are moving, but the person cannot move. The rest of the body cannot move, usually doesn't move. Moreover, in REM sleep, very importantly, there is always erection, penile erection, and corresponding genital response of the female. So, a person who is suffering from impotency can be diagnosed not to have structural or not to have a penile defect if there is erection during REM sleep. Whereas a person having penile defect, neurological defect or a structural defect of the mechanism of erection will not have erection during REM sleep. So a person showing REM sleep erection is definitely not impotent, but there may be other psychological problem which prevents an erection during the requirement. Now, REM sleep with eyeball movement, but there is absolute paralysis of the other skeletal muscle. So, the person does not act out his dreams. So, in REM sleep and also in non-REM sleep, there is dreaming. But dream during REM sleep is the dream that is recalled. It is also seen that in REM sleep, the person cannot act out his dream. There is no thrashing around. Right? So that is REM sleep. This is also known as paradoxical sleep because although the person is dreaming and the EEG pattern, most importantly the EEG pattern is akin. It is similar to that of the awakened state. So the EEG pattern of a person in REM sleep is a beta gamma pattern, and the person is recalling dream, but the person cannot move around. The opposite is some of the facts are opposite in non-REM sleep, where the person can move around a little bit more, but the heart rate, the pulse rate, the body temperature decreases and the person becomes very relaxed. Whereas in the REM sleep, there might be increase in blood pressure, there might be hurried respiration, but the movement is not seen. From REM sleep, from non-REM sleep, the first phase to REM sleep, the changeover is brought about by smoothly by orexin. We'll talk about it later. So in the next phase, we want to talk about sleep. Now, before going to sleep, we want to know what is being awake, because sleep is a phase which you go into from being awake. So what is awakened state? Awakened state is when you have an idea of what is going on around you. You feel all the sensations, the spatial sensations go in, the peripheral sensations go in, you feel pain, you feel temperature, and you have a will, you have a consciousness, you can voluntarily do things. This is a state of awareness, the state of arousal. From that state of awareness to arousal to being asleep will require the body to have various senses. So, to be falling asleep, you will need the accumulation of certain things like adenosine. So, increase of adenosine in the blood makes one drowsy. The presence of melatonin will make one drowsy. And then, cozy, warm environment can make you feel asleep. Moreover, this is influenced by the circadian rhythm, the rhythm of the light and the dark, the day and the night. So let us talk about what is sleep now. Awake is to appreciate the world, to understand what is going on and respond suitably. So let us see what keeps us on our toes, what arouses us and what keeps us awake. So first and foremost, let's draw apart the brain, because to remain awake we need to be conscious. So, and that is somewhat enclosed within our mental capacity, and as far as we know, the brain is involved. So what are the structures in the brain that helps us to maintain this stage of arousal? Let us see some structures. So this is the corpus callosum, the cortex, the cerebral cortex, the cerebellum, the pons, the medulla, the brainstem, the midbrain, the thalamus, another structure known as the fornix. So these are the parts we need to draw. Now let us look at some of the nuclei which bring about awareness or arousal. First and foremost, in the brainstem we have a meshwork of neurons which is known as the reticular activating system, or the RAS, and this sends out stimulatory signal to various nuclei so as to keep us awake. So what are the nuclei involved? So one nuclei we like to talk about is pedunculopontine nuclei. The other nuclei we like to talk about is lateral dorsal tegmental nuclei, and they are seen to be in a group because both of them will be secreting the same neurotransmitter, which in this case is acetylcholine, and both of them are known as REM on wake on. REM on, wake on. So, during the phase of awakening, they are on. During the phase of REM, they are on. The other group of nuclei I would like to talk about is locus ceruleus and raphe They are also kind of in a group, although their neurotransmitters are different. What do they do? They are obviously wake on and REM off. So during REM, they are shut off. During REM, these two nuclei are shut off. So 4 nuclei we have accounted for. Most importantly, another nuclei, tuberomammillary nuclei. What does it give off? It gives off stimulation to the thalamus. It stimulates the thalamus. It also stimulates the cortex. So you see, we have group of nuclei which gives off stimulation directly to the thalamus and also to the cortex. So these will also do the same. They will go to the thalamus. They will also go to the cortex. Goes to the thalamus cortex and also goes to the thalamic area. We have another nuclei here, basal forebrain nuclei, which also gives neurotransmitter to the cortex. So neurotransmitter given by basal forebrain in acetylcholine, by tuberomammillary nuclei is histamine, by Raphe nuclei is serotonin, and locus coeruleus provides norepinephrine or noradrenaline. Now what does it do? Histamine stimulates the thalamus. Histamine stimulates also the cortex. The rest, serotonin, acetylcholine, noradrenaline, and histamine will all stimulate the cortex. The cortex being stimulated is aroused. This is the direct stimulation from this nuclei on being stimulated by the reticular activating system. What does it do here? As we see, histamine directly stimulates the thalamus. Why the thalamus? Because it has been seen that the cortex, the cerebral cortex and the thalamus, they are constantly exciting each other. The corticothalamic fibers, thalamocortical fibers are mutually excitatory. They are constantly keeping a loop of excitement, whereby the person is awake and aroused, stimulated. Right? Now, most importantly, please note, all around the thalamus is a network of thalamic reticular network, or thalamic reticular neuron. This thalamic reticular neuron is negative, it is inhibitory, because it gives off GABA. It gives off GABA to the inside of the thalamus, and the thalamus is inhibited by its input. What the acetylcholine does is that it inhibits this reticular network, and thereby GABA is diminished. In the inhibitory signal from the pedunculopontine nuclei and lateral dorsal tegmental nuclei, this reticulum around the thalamus, which secretes inhibitory neuron is inhibited. Thereby, this inhibition is gone. Thereby, by inhibition of this inhibitory network, stimulation is maintained. Moreover, there is direct stimulation of the interneurons in the thalamic nuclei by paraffin nuclei, locus coeruleus, and most importantly by the histamine released from the tuberomammillary nuclei. So the thalamus is activated and it facilitates the sensory input which comes from all over the body, the special senses, the peripheral senses, the temperature sensation, the pain sensation, the proprioceptive sensation, which is not conscious, of course, other sensory sensory stimuluses are facilitated. They are helped to be appreciated by the cortex, and the person is awake and aware of his surrounding. The person is stimulated. So this is basically how a person is kept awake. Moreover, there is the presence of another neuron, group of neuron, which is the group of neuron which secretes orexin. So it secretes the neurotransmitter orexin, and it is stimulatory to this group of neurons. It is stimulatory to this group of neuron. It is also stimulatory to the basal forebrain neuron. So, what is the function of orexin? Orexin is basically wake on. Orexin is basically wake on and REM on. Orexin is wake on, REM on. Just like this group of nuclei. The one thing about orexin is that it helps to stabilize or bring about a smooth transition from the first phase of sleep, which is non-REM sleep, to the second phase of sleep, which is the REM sleep. It is also known as the hormone which acts as a flip-flop switch. So, this orexin likes to keep the state as it is. If the person is in REM sleep, okay, fine, the orexin facilitates it. If the person is in NREM sleep, the orexin will facilitate it. This is what is known about orexin regarding this whole scheme of things. Now, this is the awake state. Now, regarding the change that is brought about in the first phase of sleep, which is the non-REM sleep or non-rapid eye movement sleep. What happens in non-REM sleep? The person is relaxed, the person gradually becomes drowsy, and then the movement of the person becomes less, the person is relaxed, heart rate decreases, the temperature may decrease, there is relatively less movement of the eyeball, and the EEG pattern becomes different from the desynchronized awake pattern. It becomes more synchronized, and the frequency decreases gradually till it becomes very low. And we also see during the evolution of sleep, sleep spindles and K waves. So please look it up in the books for further details. What happens during NREM sleep? During NREM sleep, there is release of GABA, or a inhibitory neurotransmitter from a neuron which is known as the ventrolateral preoptic. So suppose it is located here, ventrolateral preoptic. What does it do? It gives off GABA. Remember, GABA is a inhibitory neurotransmitter. So it gives off GABA. Where does it give off GABA? It gives off GABA to the nuclear group of nuclear secreting orexin. It gives off GABA to this nuclear, basal forebrain nuclear. Also, it inhibits the tuberomammillary nuclei, thereby stopping or decreasing the release of histamine. Now what happens is that histamine release is gone by stopping basal forebrain. The cortex stimulated by acetylcholine is diminished. The histamine is also diminished. This also influences negatively the raphe nucleus and the locus coeruleus, thereby adrenergic stimulation and serotonergic stimulation is also lost from both the thalamus and the cortex. Acetylcholine no longer negatively depresses or no longer inhibits the reticular neuron, which is all around the thalamus. This reticular neuron is now free from inhibition. It is kind of excited, so it depresses the thalamus. So depression of the thalamus brings about lower facilitation, or it stops the progression of sensory input into the cortex. Moreover, thalamocortical excitation is also lost, and the person is gradually detached from the external world, because the sensory input is not allowed through the thalamus, because thalamus is the gateway for sensory input. Moreover, cortical stimulation is also decreased. The person gradually falls asleep into non-REM sleep, stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4, which is the deepest non-REM sleep, and it is very difficult for a person to be aroused from their sleep. And then something happens when the person goes into REM sleep. What happens? In REM sleep, with the help of orexin, which changes over to REM sleep very gradually, the secretion of GABA is no longer from ventrolateral preoptic area, but the GABA secretion is from another area which is known as periaqueductal gray area. So it's from periaqueductal gray area around the ventricles. So GABA is being secreted from periaqueductal gray area, and GABA is only negatively influencing. GABA from this area, please note, is only negatively influencing the nuclei, which is raphe nuclei and locus coeruleus. About the release of GABA from a different site in REM sleep than in non-REM sleep. In non-REM sleep, GABA was released from ventrolateral preoptic area, and it successfully managed to detach the thalamus from all the sensory input coming from the rest of the body, and it also brought about an inhibition of the inhibitory acetylcholine, thereby increasing the GABAergic input to the thalamus, thereby making the thalamus silent and making the person go into non-REM sleep. But in REM sleep, the GABA comes from a different area, periaqueductal gray area, and it provides its inhibitory input to the locus coeruleus and the raphe nuclei. The rest of the system is okay. The rest of the system is still around. So, what happens is that these neurons are cut off. But acetylcholine releasing pedunculopontine nuclei and lateral dorsal tegmental nuclei are still active. So they will now inhibit the GABAergic input to the thalamus. The thalamus is now activated. But interestingly, even on activation of the thalamus, what happens is that the person is no longer in touch with the rest of the world because these acetylcholine secreting neurons will also stimulate pontine neurons in the pons. The neurons in the pons, they will stimulate. And what does this stimulation do? Most importantly, this stimulation will inhibit sensory input they will inhibit all sensory input from the spinal cord and also the respective cranial nerves. Secondly, all motor activities, all skeletal motor activities, skeletal motor activities will be depressed. So sensory input from the rest of the body is stopped. Skeletal motor activity is depressed, so the person cannot move his or her limb, cannot act out the dreams. The person is dreaming. The cortex is stimulated and the EEG is as in the awake state. Please note, REM sleep is also known as a paradoxical phase of sleep or paradoxical sleep because on looking at the EEG recording, it is the same as the EEG recording of an awake person. So the cortex looks awake. The person is also dreaming. But due to the skeletal muscle suppression by pontine nuclei which are stimulated by the acetylcholine secreting nuclei, there is no movement. The person cannot thrash around. Sensory input are also diminished. Moreover, very interestingly, signal go to the geniculate body, lateral geniculate body, and to the orbital cortex, and also to the areas where movement of the eyeball occurs. So you have ocular excitement, ocular excitement, thereby giving rise to the well-known rapid eye movement. So rapid eye movement is generated by PGO stimulus, sponto-genicular, that is pontine, lateral geniculate, and areas of the oculomotor activation. So REM